into it, trying to get these dizzies done. Not really having a win. There's dizzies everywhere. I thought I was going to be able to get the old shaft out of the points dizzy, which is this fella here. Fortunately, the shaft size is that different that it won't even fit in the housing of the new one, and the shaft's totally different. The new shaft, or the electronic shaft, is actually a lot longer, and all the grooves and everything are all different. Nothing fits, so well done Ford for making that a lot harder than what it had to be. But anyway, so I'm going to try and rebuild this one, just get it back together, and then pretty much just have it there if I need it. The old one, not going back together, plus I changed the shaft into a bit of a punch. But anyway, thought I'll try my luck. That motor under there, which is out of my truck, had electronic dizzy, which is this bloke here. Fortunately, same shaft as that one, so no good. But anyway, so what I'll do is just keep this one out as a spare anyway, because if I was to build a Cleveland, it wouldn't be an issue, because all I do is just put a different bushing in the block there, and that would accommodate for this shaft size. It's just the joys of it. Also got some fittings and stuff now. So braided line, a T-piece to go at the back of the block for the oil pressure sender. So the original sender unit's going to go on top, fitting out the side, which goes to that, which then goes to that, which then goes through the line to that, which will go on the back of these gauges here. So I just get a fitting that's going to adapt that gauge to that line. And yeah, I'll hang these probably the same spot where I had it in my truck. It was a pretty handy spot, and they're a good set of gauges, they work, so that's the plan. And yeah, it just keeps it all tidy. Plus I really hate this plastic tubing shit. I ran it on my truck, but was never really sort of keen on the idea. And yeah, the braided line is fairly sort of chafe resistant and all that sort of shit, so, and it looks pretty sort of clean. So that's the way we're going with that, especially seeing it's going in the cab. Just warming up the alternator, getting ready to eat it. So everything's pulled off the rear of it. It's all taped up. I ended up zinging all these bolts off, because they're the actual bolts that hold the whole unit together, but they were about 3 days too long, and they were just basically finger cutters. Every time you'd hook something up on the back of the alternator, you'd cut your hand open on them, and they'd bend, and just they were pointless. So I've zinged them off, so they're only just out the housing, and that should make it a lot easier now. So it's all taped off, pretty much bare right to paint. And the reason I'm painting, it's just the look it is at the moment. It's pretty dirty and messy, even though I've cleaned it. It's just aluminium when you go to wire brush it. Turn up now. So the bench is just a pigsty at the moment. About 10 different things going on at once. So you saw 2 dizzies. Well, we've got this dizzy here, which is the right shaft, which is what I need. So what I'll do is I'll pull this one apart, clean it all up, make sure the bushing and everything's alright, space it out so it's not all sloppy, and yeah, that should be right to put in. Saw the alternator was all painted up, so once all those spaces and that are done, I can bolt that on. Just wait for a top bracket. I've organised one for my mate, because the one that was on it was just 2 brackets chook shitted together, and yeah, it just looks fucking disgusting. So he sourced me that, so I'll grab that Monday. Also brand new engine mounts, because the ones that were on this motor are all cracked and perished, and with the old 50 HP twisting its way through, probably don't want it to cut a couple of laps in the engine bay, so they should help me out. Still sorting out the gauges, but at the moment I'm doing the Welsh plugs. So this thing's had Welsh plugs in it at some point. They probably weren't too bad, they could have stayed in there, but I didn't know how well they were. So put mine in, plus I painted them ones. and you just can't go past the look of fresh Welsh plugs inside of a painted engine. So I've sort of gone through, cleaned everything up, and then I've actually put a bit of sealant down, and yeah, you can sort of see there just a bit of sealant around the edge. And you can see in there's that little rod or tube. I'm not exactly sure what that is, I've never actually seen that in there before. But feeling the side of the bores, they feel real good, so that's given me a little bit more peace of mind. I was sort of a bit worried that it might be fairly eaten away inside, because yeah, I've had some motors and they've just been flaky as shit around the bores, and yeah, there's a lot of crap in there. This is actually pretty clean inside the block, so I'm pretty happy with that. So pretty simple job. Seal around the edge. Some people don't. Probably most people see when you hit it in, it's probably just going to push it away and it's not actually going to work, but I don't know. Sealant's on there now. And then yeah, all I do is just get a socket. This sort of fits in here, not tight, because once it goes in here it actually crushes in a bit and you will not get that socket out. So one that's a little bit smaller, a little bit of play, and then yeah, just hammer them in there, make sure it's nice and level. I can guarantee 9 times out of 10 it won't go in level, but see how you go with it. Another dry sunny day in Portland. So I didn't really get much filmed after that last vid because the wind picked up, shed was flapping, and obviously trees falling over the line. Power went out, couldn't really do much in torchlight, so bit of a shame. But I got a few jobs out of the way before that happened, so I ended up getting the engine mounts on, correct bolts. Just got to make sure that they don't bottom out, because you probably will spin the thread. Also got the alternator on and it fits perfect. Belt alignment's pretty much spot on, so this is actually the correct alternator, which is pretty good because now I know that I can fit a Cleveland alternator to a 6-cylinder to a Cleveland. And it works out the other alternator that was on here was actually the wrong one. Hence why old mate's done the chook shit job and the heap of spacers and all that sort of thing. So pretty happy with that. How it lines up. And yeah, it definitely looks good with the blue pulley and fan. Just fits in, doesn't look out of place. So still on the dizzy hunt. So I said I got that one from down the shed that was the correct shaft size. It works out it's been pulled apart and it's had dodgy things done inside and wasn't very happy with it. Plus trying to get the gear off, I found that they had the same idea as me and decided to put a shim actually on the bottom of the shaft to pick up the play in the bottom because the shafts are too small. Doing that though, yeah, I've damaged it and I'm gonna have to get a new one made. So I'll probably get the brother to do that because he's pretty good on a lathe and saves me trying to hurt myself. So with that, now I'm back to the dizzy out of this black engine here, just because it's probably the best dizzy out of the lot. Everything inside's still in pretty good condition. So I thought I'd show you while the housing and that's cooking. I decided to paint it, just looks shitty compared to everything else. It's a problem when you paint one thing, it escalates, nearly everything's painted by the end of it. But one thing I actually did have an issue with pulling this dizzy apart was underneath this advance plate. So this actually swings out and it's on a spring. You can probably see under there there's a gap. So what I've actually done is a piece of black sort of PVC. You could probably get this from Bunnings. Sometimes people use it for going on the end of the vacuum advance module there. Basically it's just a hard plastic, sort of pretty close to what used to be there, because when I pulled this apart both sides broke and they weren't any good anymore. As you can see that there's a piece of plastic there that actually rides on top of the plate here to keep it elevated, so it just rubs on the top of the plate. The only thing is, if you don't have a spacer in here, the plate sort of likes to do this and jumps around a bit. So all I did was cut out a piece. It's probably going to be a bit hard with one hand, so I'm going to sit this down if it wants to. So pretty much slide him over the top there. Then your plate goes on as well. And then, if I can find it, there's a little circlip, and these little bastards take off all the time. Like that. Luckily I found him again, but so you can push him on pretty much most of the time.
3 days later.
So that's pretty much it. As you can see, nice and level. Can't really rock it all. Of course it can lift up, but it's not dropping at the back where it pivots. And yeah, that's pretty much just a quick easy fix if you do break stuff like that, and they usually do go missing and whatnot. So yeah, just a bit of PVC plastic, nothing special, and yeah, should be able to get the rest together now. First things first, but try not to drop it. Roasted veggie and a bit of steak. Yeah. Getting a bit late now. Dizzy's finally done though. All painted up. Everything's clean inside. Everything's right to go. Also shimmed the bottom of the shaft there. I ended up using a felt washer, just because some say that the felt washer is a little bit sort of better, gives a little bit more sort of give and whatnot. If you put a steel one in there, it can be a bit harsh for it and cause issues, but I reckon that'll be fine. So there's no playing it now. Everything's all cleaned up inside. Everything's pretty much good to go. Also did the feeler gauge for the middle wheel there. Make sure you don't fire it up and rip all the teeth off it. So that should be pretty much right to go. I just got to, yeah, sort out this shim now to go on the bottom of the shaft here. Try and get it up to that size there. So I have to figure that out before it goes in. Once that's done, then it can be bolted in, and happy days. Also, while I remember, yes, it doesn't have a vacuum advance module on it. Currently, I don't have one. At the moment, I don't really need one anyway. It's mainly for economy and all that sort of shit anyway. The one that was on there is no good. And as you can see, it's got a number on there, which means it's specific to whatever Dizzy. The only one that I've got that works is a wrong number, and it is slightly different. So if I find one, I'll put it in, but for now, the Dizzy will work fine, and yeah, do its job anyway. Some bits have turned up, and we're pretty much right to start sort of getting into it again. So I did get the old spare Dizzy rebuilt to the point where we've got it so we can use it. Still organising the shaft shim for the bottom, try and get the old new Dizzy into the old blocks. Brother's working that one out. He's a machinist, so hopefully we come up with an idea, because they're a good Dizzy. They work well with your MSD Street Fires and all that sort of stuff, so may as well use them. So hopefully we get that out of the way. Also got the alternator bracket I was looking for, so my mate Parksy got that one sorted for me, so cheers mate. Also organised myself a carby spacer, so an old Mr. Gasket one. So currently just cleaned it up, gave it a sort of light paint over the outside just to tidy it up. And the reason I've done this is the spacer does help with a few things, and I do feel a little bit more peace of mind, especially with a dual plane with the center ridge in the middle. This just spaces the carby up away from that, and yeah, as I said, helps with a few things. Reason I've got that out now is intake is back. So my mate Mick blasted it up for me, clear coated it, and yeah, it's come up pretty well. Really happy with it, so cheers for that mate. So hopefully now it's clear coated, that'll keep it clean, it won't stain, go shitty looking, and hopefully we don't end up with the intake that I started with, because it was pretty dirty and crappy. Now it looks really nice and clean, so pretty much right to go on. So I'm setting that up now. I've got the intake gaskets sorted, so Performance Printo Seal ones. Also they do come with a spare set of Valley gaskets, but these ones are a lot wider, possibly for a big block, don't hold me to that, but They're a hell of a lot wider than the ones I've got on the motor. The ones I've got on the motor, sealant on the bottom side of them, so that holds them in place. I've actually trimmed the sides because they're a little bit long. They do spread out a bit. So that's just making it right at the corner of the head. So what I'm going to do now is put a good bit of sealant in the corners, because they tend to leak there if you don't. So yeah, at the rear as well. These are the gaskets. Really nice looking gasket. You can see that they actually don't have the hole cut out for the exhaust crossover here, or intake crossover, sorry. What I'm going to do is actually leave that blocked off. So I'll probably put a little piece of shim steel in there, so really thin shim steel, so the gasket will actually still squash over it, won't distort the head or anything. That basically just seals this off and hopefully won't give us any drama. I'll get these gaskets sorted out and these ones on, intake on. Hopefully we should be right.
Nothing can hold back my rage. Never to tame me. Ink full of faithless. Never to tame me. Feel the man who lost it all. One soul failing me. Heal the main ones rotten to the core.
Intake's on, all bolted down. So bolts, I've just done them up at the moment, just to let the sealant do its thing. And then I'll go around, do them all up, torque them down, do the crisscross thing. Just because these bolts sort of go in more of a vertical angle, they don't actually go straight on with the head. Aftermarket ones are usually straight on. Chrysler ones, Chev ones are usually like that. Ford's sort of going more vertical. So sometimes that just means when you do it up, you think you've got it right, you check it again and they actually need more. You just go around, check them. Of course, don't overdo it, but yeah, you've usually got to go over them a couple of times just to make sure. But all bolted up pretty well, nothing sort of held it up too much. And yeah, it's looking pretty good on there, I'm pretty happy with it. So a good bit of ooze out with the sealant on the front, that's exactly what I wanted. So that shows me that it's got contact all the way across. If it was oozed out and then it was sort of looking a bit sort of less there, you'd be sort of a bit worried about that. The back's also the same, nice and oozed out. So what I'll do is wipe it off with my finger, pretty much clean it up, should be right to go. Also, with these intakes, always make sure to turn your torque wrench back when you're doing these center 4 bolts here, because if you leave them at that, you most likely snap these. And that'll most likely wreck your knot. I ended up just building a block off, same as the fuel pump. Piece of checker plate aluminium. Got my little cardboard piece over here. So what I did was press it down on the surface there. Pressing it down, actually pressed the line into it. And then also showed me where the holes were. Cut out the scissors, hole punched the holes, and then yeah, transferred it to the aluminium checker plate, and it's come up pretty good. So light bit of clear on it. If it'll stick, we don't know, but it's worth a shot. So that's got that out of the way. I ended up back masking the heads as well, intake, a little bit around the front, and yeah, painting along the top here, because it shits me in tears when you go to all this trouble to paint the motor, nice clean intake and everything, and then it goes rusty along here because couldn't be bothered painting it. For a little bit of extra time it took, it's yeah, smarting the whole engine up. So I started on getting these spark plug leads all set up. So I've got driver side done now, pretty much run where I want it, how I want it, and yeah, it definitely looks a lot cleaner than the stock ones you get that usually run over the rocker cover and all that sort of shit. So I haven't done the passenger side yet. Thought I'd run through that with you to show you how easy it is. It's not much involved at all, and just a few things to sort of think about when if you decide to do your own. I thought I'd show you my mate Packy, owns or runs Finesse Auto. Did me a solid on these rocker covers, ceramic coated them for me, so they're all cleaned up and they're shiny as all shit. As you can see, I could probably get away with doing my makeup in them. But the reason I did this, I've said it a few times now, chrome's not chrome these days. It's kind of like the roads, all the good shit's taken out, and you get a little bit of rain, a little bit of moisture, and they turn to shit. So hopefully these will now stay clean, also not rust. Cover off this thing. So before I took the other side off, I've already got one side ready to go down the other end. I thought I'd show you the reason I've bolted the extractors on, and the reason I've done that is to see where basically straight up and down is going to be. So what I've done is marked it with a texter here, or a paint pen, got the flange, set that up, marked it as well, and the reason I've marked it is I know pretty much the flat is going to be to the top and not the actual point. When you go to do the exhaust bolts up, you've got two here, one down the bottom. You're not trying to reach up over and do one up here, fuck around, all that sort of shit. So two there, one at the bottom, so much easier, and you can see nearly every bolt you've got.